The moment my sister Jessica leaned over to whisper those poisonous words into my 7-year-old son Tyler's ear at his birthday dinner will forever be burned into my memory. Tyler had just unwrapped the telescope I'd saved 3 months to buy him his face, absolutely glowing with excitement as he examined every detail. Then Jessica moved closer and said quietly, but loud enough for me to hear, "You know why you don't get good presents like your cousin Sweetie, because your daddy's selfish." I watched my little boy's smile crumble instantly, his bright eyes filling with confusion and hurt as he looked between Jessica and me, not understanding why someone would say something so cruel on his special day. The silence that followed Jessica's words felt like it lasted forever. Tyler's small hands trembled as he set down his new telescope, his birthday joy completely shattered. Around our table at Romano's restaurant, the rest of our family sat frozen, unsure how to respond to what they'd just witnessed. My mother gasped softly while my Uncle Frank cleared his throat uncomfortably. Jessica, however, sat back with a satisfied smirk, as if she'd accomplished exactly what she'd set out to do. What made this moment even more devastating was knowing it wasn't random cruelty. This attack on my son stemmed from a confrontation 6 months earlier when Jessica had demanded I co-sign a massive business loan for her husband, Marcus. She'd cornered me at our cousin's wedding, insisting I owed it to family to help them expand his construction company. When I'd asked to see the business financials, Marcus had reluctantly revealed that he'd already defaulted on 2 previous loans, leaving their credit in ruins. I'd said no, not out of selfishness, but because I couldn't risk Tyler's financial security. As a single father working as a high school history teacher, every dollar mattered. My wife Sarah had died in a car accident 3 years ago, leaving me to raise Tyler alone on my modest teacher's salary. The life insurance had covered Sarah's medical bills and funeral costs, but there wasn't much left over. I lived paycheck to paycheck, carefully budgeting every expense to ensure Tyler had everything he needed. Jessica lived a completely different reality. Married to Marcus, who'd built a successful construction business, before his recent troubles she was accustomed to luxury. Their house in the upscale Riverside neighborhood boasted a swimming pool and 3-car garage. Their kids Emma and Jake attended private school and received extravagant gifts for every occasion. Jessica drove a brand new BMW while I drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic that I maintained myself to save money. Since my refusal to co-sign the loan, Jessica had become increasingly hostile. She'd make pointed comments about my cheap gifts at family gatherings. When Tyler wore the same outfit to 2 consecutive family events, she'd loudly suggest I invest in more clothes for the poor child. She'd conveniently forget to invite us to family barbecues, then act surprised when we didn't show up. Her passive-aggressive behavior had been building for months, but tonight she'd crossed a line I never thought she'd cross. "Jessica, what's wrong with you?" My mother finally whispered, her voice shaking with disbelief. "I'm just being honest," Jessica replied, shrugging casually. "Connor needs to hear the truth about his priorities." Tyler looked up at me with tears streaming down his cheeks. "Daddy, am I not worth good presents?" That question shattered my heart completely. I knelt down beside his chair, gently cupping his face in my hands. "Tyler, you are worth everything in this world to me. That telescope isn't cheap, buddy. I saved for months because I knew you'd love exploring the stars." "Then why did Aunt Jessica say you're selfish?" Tyler asked, his voice barely audible. Before I could answer, Jessica interjected, "Because he could afford to give you so much more if he wanted to. He just chooses not to." The rage building inside me felt volcanic, but I forced myself to remain calm for Tyler's sake. Standing slowly, I reached for my son's hand. "Come on, buddy. Let's go home." "Connor, don't you dare walk away from this conversation," Jessica called after us as I helped Tyler gather his gifts. I turned back to face her, my voice steady but cold. "There's nothing to discuss, Jessica. What you just did to my son is unforgivable." "Oh, please. I'm just telling him the truth about his father's selfishness." Maybe if you weren't so cheap, Tyler wouldn't feel so different from his cousins. Running away from your problems again, Connor, she shouted as we headed toward the restaurant exit. As we walked to the car, Tyler clutched his telescope tightly, still sniffling. I buckled him into his booster seat, my hands shaking with anger and heartbreak. This was supposed to be his special day, and Jessica had deliberately destroyed it. I'd spent weeks planning this dinner, coordinating with family members to make sure everyone could attend. I'd even splurged on dinner at Tyler's favorite restaurant, stretching my budget to make the evening memorable. During the drive home, Tyler remained unusually quiet. When we pulled into our driveway, he finally spoke up. Daddy, do Emma and Jake get better presents? Because Uncle Marcus loves them more than you love me. I parked the car and turned to face him fully. Tyler listened to me carefully. Love isn't measured by how much money someone spends. I love you more than anything in this universe, and that will never change. Some families have more money than others, but that doesn't mean they love their children more. But Aunt Jessica said something very hurtful because she's angry with me about something that has nothing to do with you. What she said was wrong, and I promise you that you are the most precious thing in my life. That night after Tyler fell asleep clutching his new telescope, I sat in my kitchen trying to process what had happened. Jessica had attacked my child to get back at me, crossing every boundary of decency and family loyalty. I tried for months to maintain peace, to rise above her petty comments and cruel behavior. But tonight she'd shown me exactly who she really was, and I realized that protecting Tyler meant I could no longer tolerate her toxicity. 3 days after Tyler's birthday disaster, my phone rang while I was grading papers during my lunch break at Jefferson High School. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but the professional tone on the other end immediately caught my attention. Mr. Connor Hayes, this is Nathan Rodriguez from Premium Events Catering. I'm calling to confirm the final details for your catering order scheduled for this Saturday. I nearly dropped my red pen. I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong number. I haven't placed any catering orders. Sir, I have your credit card information on file and a signed contract for a $16,000 anniversary celebration package. The event is scheduled for Saturday afternoon at the Riverside Country Club under your name. My blood ran cold. $16,000. Anniversary celebration. Can you tell me who signed this contract? The contract was signed by Jessica Hayes, but she indicated she was placing the order on your behalf as a surprise gift for the anniversary couple. Jessica Hayes. My married sister who'd kept her maiden name professionally. My heart started pounding as the pieces fell into place. Nathan, I need to see that contract immediately. I'll be there within the hour. I arranged for another teacher to cover my afternoon classes and drove straight to Premium Events Catering. Nathan, a kind man in his 50s, welcomed me into his office with genuine confusion. He spread the contract across his desk, and I stared at a signature that looked remarkably similar to mine, but had subtle differences I could detect. She forged my signature, I said quietly, studying the document. Sir, if you're claiming fraud, we'll need to involve legal authorities. However, according to our cancellation policy, any order canceled within 7 days of the event is still subject to 75% of the total cost. $12,000. Even if I could prove Jessica had committed fraud, I'd still be liable for $12,000 I absolutely didn't have. My checking account contained $800, and my savings account had just over $3,000 that I'd been building for Tyler's future emergencies. Nathan, can you tell me exactly what this order includes? He pulled out a detailed list that made my stomach turn. Premium bar service, lobster, and filet mignon dinner for 60 guests, live jazz band, professional photography, elaborate floral arrangements, and custom cake. Everything screamed luxury and excess, the exact opposite of how I lived my life. When did my sister place this order? I asked. 2 weeks ago. She was very specific about wanting everything to be perfect for her anniversary celebration. She mentioned that you wanted to surprise her with this gift to apologize for some family misunderstanding. 2 weeks ago. That was exactly 1 week after Tyler's birthday dinner. Jessica hadn't just lashed out in the moment. She'd planned this elaborate financial trap specifically to punish me. She knew I couldn't afford to pay for her party, but she'd also structured it so that backing out would cost me nearly as much as going through with it. Did she provide my credit card information? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Nathan nodded, pulling out another form. She had all your information ready, including the security code on the back. She said you'd specifically asked her to handle the arrangements because you were too busy with work. I stared at my credit card information written in Jessica's handwriting. She'd somehow obtained my complete financial details, probably through our mother, who'd always been careless about leaving important documents around during family gatherings. Our mother often asked family members to help her organize paperwork, and Jessica had likely memorized my information during one of those sessions. Driving home, my phone started ringing constantly. First, my Aunt Patricia called, bubbling with excitement about the wonderful surprise I was planning for Jessica and Marcus. Then my Uncle Frank called to thank me for being so generous and family-oriented. Call after call revealed that Jessica had spread the word throughout our extended family that I was hosting an elaborate anniversary celebration as my way of apologizing for being difficult recently. Each conversation made me feel sicker. Jessica hadn't just stolen my identity to order catering. She'd used it to rehabilitate her reputation within our family. Everyone now believed I was the generous, loving brother who'd realized the error of his selfish ways and was making amends through this grand gesture. Meanwhile, I was painted as the reformed miser who'd finally learned to prioritize family over money. When I picked up Tyler from aftercare that afternoon, his teacher, Mrs. Williams, pulled me aside. Tyler seems much more withdrawn since his birthday. He's been asking the other children about their presents and whether their daddies love them enough to buy expensive things. The impact of Jessica's cruelty was spreading through every aspect of Tyler's life. My usually confident, happy child was questioning his worth based on the dollar value of his gifts. At home, he'd started playing differently, with his toys arranging them by how much he thought they cost rather than how much he enjoyed them. That evening, while Tyler worked on homework, I called my mother to ask about my personal information. She confirmed my suspicions without realizing the implications. Oh yes, Jessica helped me organize all the family emergency contact information last month. She said she wanted to make sure everyone's details were up to date in case of emergencies. She's always been so thoughtful about family organization. Mom, did you give her permission to use my credit card information? But no, of course not. Why would she need that? I explained the catering situation, watching my mother's reaction shift from confusion to horror. Connor, that doesn't sound like Jessica. Are you sure there wasn't some misunderstanding? But even as she defended Jessica, I could hear the doubt creeping into her voice. The evidence was overwhelming, and the pattern of Jessica's recent behavior made her guilt undeniable. She'd systematically manipulated family relationships, spread lies about my character, and now committed financial fraud, all because I'd refused to risk my son's security for her husband's failed business ventures. As I tucked Tyler into bed that night, he looked up at me with Sarah's eyes and asked, "Daddy, are we poor?" The question broke my heart because I realized Jessica's poison was working. Tyler was starting to see our modest lifestyle as something shameful rather than something we managed together as a team. We have everything we need, buddy. We have our home, good food, each other, and love. That's not poor, that's rich in all the ways that matter. But Emma has a playhouse in her backyard that's bigger than my bedroom. Different families have different amounts of money, Tyler. But having more money doesn't make someone a better person or a better family. What makes a family good is how they treat each other with kindness and respect. After Tyler fell asleep, I sat in my living room staring at the catering contract, realizing Jessica had trapped me perfectly. Pay $16,000 I didn't have or cancel, and still pay $12,000 I didn't have while looking like the family member who'd backed out on his promise. Either way, she'd financially devastated me while making herself look like the victim of my unreliability. But Jessica had made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated how far I was willing to go to protect my son. The next morning, I met with Dave Peterson, my college roommate who'd become a successful accountant. We'd remained close friends over the years, and he'd helped me navigate the financial complexities after Sarah's death. Dave's office overlooked downtown, a reminder of the professional success that had eluded me in my choice to prioritize stability over profit. "Connor, this is sophisticated fraud," Dave said after reviewing the catering contract and credit card statements. "Jessica didn't just forge your signature, she researched contract law to create maximum financial damage with minimal legal risk." Dave explained that Premium Events Catering's cancellation policy was ironclad and legally enforceable. Even if I could prove Jessica had committed fraud, the civil litigation would take months while the debt remained on my credit report. The catering company had followed proper verification procedures, accepting Jessica's information in good faith. Here's what's really clever. Dave continued, pointing to specific contract language. "She signed this on a Tuesday, knowing that most cancellation policies count business days, not calendar days. By the time you discovered the fraud, you were already past the point where cancellation would save you significant money." The contract included penalty clauses that escalated based on proximity to the event date. Canceling today would cost me $12,000. Waiting until tomorrow would increase the penalty to $13,500. Jessica had timed everything perfectly to maximize my financial pain while minimizing her own legal exposure. But here's what worries me most. Dave added, pulling out additional documents. "This isn't Jessica's first time accessing your financial information. I found 3 small purchases over the past 2 months that match her pattern. A $50 charge at Emma's dance studio, a $120 purchase at a boutique she frequents, and a $200 payment to her landscaping service." My hands clenched into fists. Jessica had been systematically stealing from me for months, testing how much she could take before I noticed. The amounts were small enough to escape my attention, but large enough to fund her little luxuries at my expense. "Dave, if I pursue criminal charges, what happens?" "Identity theft and credit card fraud are felonies, but prosecution takes time. Meanwhile, you're still liable for the catering charges." Jessica knew that even if she faced legal consequences, eventually she'd accomplish her immediate goal of destroying you financially. I left Dave's office feeling trapped and furious. Jessica had constructed the perfect revenge scheme, leveraging my own family relationships against me. Every relative who'd called to praise my generosity would blame me when the anniversary party failed to materialize. Jessica would emerge as the victim of my broken promises while I'd be branded as unreliable and cruel. Back at school, I struggled to focus on teaching American history, while my own personal history was being rewritten by my sister's lies. During my planning period, I called Premium Events Catering, again hoping Nathan might have found some loophole or solution. "Mr. Hayes, I've reviewed your contract thoroughly with our legal team. Unfortunately, the cancellation terms are binding. However, I should mention that your sister called this morning asking about menu modifications." "What kind of modifications?" "She wanted to upgrade to the premium alcohol package and add a chocolate fountain. The additional cost would be $800. Jessica was still spending my money even after her fraud had been discovered. She apparently believed she could continue manipulating the situation to her advantage, adding expenses to maximize my financial devastation. That afternoon, Tyler came home from school with a drawing he'd made during art class. The picture showed 2 houses, one large and colorful, labeled Emma's house, and one small and gray labeled Our House. Between them, he'd drawn a sad face under the words, "Daddy can't afford good things." "Tyler, where did this idea come from?" I asked gently. "Emma told everyone at school that her daddy loves her more because he buys her better stuff. She said her mommy told her that some daddies don't care enough to spend money on their kids." Jessica's poison was spreading beyond our family into Tyler's school environment. She was using her own daughter to humiliate my son, creating a narrative where love equated to spending power. Emma, an innocent 8-year-old, was unknowingly becoming a weapon in Jessica's campaign against us. That evening, my mother called with news that made everything worse. Connor, I spoke with Jessica today about this catering confusion. She's very hurt that you're trying to back out of your generous gesture. She said you promised to pay for their anniversary party as an apology for refusing to help with Marcus's business loan. Mom Jessica forged my signature and stole my credit card information. Now, Connor, that's a very serious accusation. Jessica showed me text messages where you supposedly agreed to handle the catering arrangements. She says you're having second thoughts because the cost is higher than you expected. I realized Jessica had manufactured fake text messages to support her story. She'd created a complete false narrative with fabricated evidence making it impossible for family members to distinguish between truth and lies. Anyone who wanted to believe Jessica's version had plenty of proof to support their bias. Mom, I never sent those messages. This is fraud and I'm going to prove it. Connor, please don't do something you'll regret. Family is more important than money. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen trying to understand how Jessica had gained such complete control over the family narrative. She'd positioned herself as the generous sister-in-law trying to help her brother overcome his selfishness, while I'd become the unreliable miser who made promises he couldn't keep. The financial trap was perfect, but Jessica had revealed something crucial about her character. She wasn't just angry about the loan refusal, she was willing to destroy my son's emotional well-being and my family relationships to get revenge. That level of calculated cruelty showed me exactly what kind of person I was dealing with. Tyler found me at the kitchen table that night staring at bills and bank statements. Daddy, are you sad about money? I'm sad about people not being honest, buddy. Is Aunt Jessica not being honest? I looked into my son's intelligent eyes, realizing he deserved more truth than I'd been giving him. Aunt Jessica is very angry with me. And sometimes when adults get angry, they do things that hurt other people. What she did wasn't right, but we're going to figure out how to handle it. Can we still look at stars with my telescope? Despite everything Jessica had done, Tyler still found joy in the simple gifts that came from love rather than money. His resilience reminded me that protecting him meant more than just protecting our finances. It meant protecting his ability to value relationships over material possessions. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of playing defense against Jessica's attacks, it was time to go on the offense. The next morning, I called Rachel Martinez, a law school friend who specialized in fraud cases for a prestigious downtown firm. Rachel and I had maintained a friendship since graduation, bonding over our shared experience of choosing demanding careers that didn't necessarily lead to wealth. She'd built a reputation for taking on cases that combined legal complexity with personal justice. Connor, what you're describing isn't just simple fraud, Rachel said after I'd explained the situation. This is a coordinated campaign of financial manipulation combined with character assassination. Jessica has committed multiple felonies, but more importantly, she's created a pattern of behavior that shows premeditation. Rachel's office overlooked the financial district, and sitting across from her polished desk, I felt both hope and apprehension about pursuing legal action against my own sister. What kind of consequences would Jessica face? Identity theft, credit card fraud, and forgery are all serious crimes. With proper documentation, we could see criminal charges filed within weeks. However, I suspect there's more going on here than just revenge over a loan refusal. Rachel pulled out a legal pad and started taking notes. Tell me about Marcus's construction business. What specific financial troubles were they facing when they asked you to co-sign? I explained Marcus's previous loan defaults and his reluctance to show me complete financial records. Rachel's expression grew increasingly serious as she took notes about timeline and amounts involved. Connor, I think we need to dig deeper into Marcus and Jessica's current financial situation. Their anniversary party isn't just about appearances. It might be a desperate attempt to maintain credibility while their world collapses around them. Rachel made some phone calls while I waited, leveraging her professional network to gather information about Marcus's construction company. What she discovered was far worse than I'd imagined. Riverside Construction Solutions is facing bankruptcy, Rachel announced after her final call. Marcus has been using the business to hide personal assets. While preparing for Chapter 11 filing, he owes suppliers over $200,000, has 3 active lawsuits from former clients, and the IRS has placed a lien on their business assets. The scope of their financial disaster explained Jessica's increasingly desperate behavior. She wasn't just angry about my loan refusal, she was watching her entire lifestyle crumble and striking out at anyone she could blame for their troubles. But here's the interesting part, Rachel continued. If you had co-signed that loan 6 months ago, you'd be personally liable for Marcus's business debts right now. Your refusal didn't just protect your own finances, it prevented you from being dragged into their bankruptcy. I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. My instinct to protect Tyler's security had been correct, but it meant Jessica was facing far more serious consequences than I'd understood. Her cruelty toward Tyler stemmed from her own terror about her children's future. Rachel, I don't want to destroy Jessica's life, but I can't let her destroy mine either. Connor, Jessica made her choices when she decided to commit fraud against you. Your job is protecting Tyler, not enabling Jessica's destructive behavior. Rachel outlined a strategy that would expose Jessica's crimes while offering her a path toward taking responsibility for her actions. We would document everything present evidence to both family members and law enforcement, but structure the approach to encourage accountability rather than just punishment. The key is showing Jessica that her current path leads to criminal prosecution, while offering her an alternative that involves making amends and getting help for the underlying problems driving her behavior. I spent the afternoon at Rachel's office documenting Jessica's financial crimes and building a timeline that revealed the calculated nature of her actions. We found evidence of her accessing my credit information dating back 4 months, suggesting she'd been planning this revenge scheme for much longer than I'd realized. Meanwhile, Rachel's investigation into Marcus's business revealed additional troubling information. He'd been hiding the extent of their financial problems from Jessica, leading her to believe they were facing temporary difficulties rather than complete financial collapse. Jessica's anger toward me was partly based on Marcus's lies about why they really needed the loan. Connor, I think Marcus needs to understand what Jessica has done using your identity. He might not be aware of the full extent of her desperation. That evening, I had a difficult conversation with Tyler about standing up to people who try to hurt us. We were sitting in his bedroom looking through his telescope at the moon when he asked about fairness and justice. Daddy, when someone does something mean, should you do something mean back? Nobody. When someone does something wrong, you should do what's right. But doing what's right sometimes means making sure they can't keep hurting people. Is that what you're going to do with Aunt Jessica? I'm going to make sure she understands that what she did was wrong and that she can't keep doing it. But I'm also going to try to help her understand why she made those choices so she can make better ones in the future. Tyler nodded solemnly, then looked back through his telescope. I hope she can learn to be nice again. His capacity for forgiveness humbled me, but it also strengthened my resolve to handle this situation in a way that protected his innocent heart while teaching him about standing up for what's right. Later that night, Rachel called with additional information that changed everything. Connor, I spoke with a contact at the district attorney's office about similar cases. They're very interested in Jessica's crimes because they fit a pattern they've been tracking involving financial fraud within families. If we present this case properly, Jessica won't just face individual charges. She'll become part of a larger investigation into domestic financial abuse. The scope of consequences suddenly became much more serious. Jessica's actions weren't just personal revenge. They represented a pattern of behavior that law enforcement actively prosecuted as part of protecting vulnerable family members from financial predators. Rachel, what does this mean for Jessica's children? If Jessica faces criminal charges, Emma and Jake would likely stay with Marcus during any legal proceedings. However, given Marcus's financial situation, they might need support from extended family members. The complexity of consequences extended far beyond just Jessica and me. Her children were innocent victims of their parents' poor decisions, and any resolution needed to consider their well-being alongside Tyler's protection. I realized that my next actions would determine not just my own family's future, but the future of Emma and Jake as well. Jessica had forced a situation where someone was going to suffer significant consequences, but I could still influence how those consequences played out. The time for passive responses had ended. Jessica had shown me exactly who she was, and now I needed to show her exactly who I was. Saturday morning arrived with Jessica's anniversary party scheduled for the afternoon, and Premium Events Catering expecting final confirmation for the $16,000 order I'd never authorized. Instead of panicking or seeking another futile attempt at reasoning with Jessica, I put Rachel's strategic plan into motion. My first call was to Nathan at Premium Events Catering. Nathan, I'd like to modify the catering order rather than cancel it entirely. Mr. Hayes, I'm so relieved to hear from you. We were concerned when we hadn't received final confirmation. What modifications did you have in mind? I want to redirect the entire order to a different venue and date. Instead of an anniversary party at Riverside Country Club today, I want to create a children's birthday celebration for next Saturday at the Westside Community Center. Nathan paused, clearly confused by the dramatic change in event type and location. Sir, that's quite a significant modification. The menu items we've prepared are designed for an upscale adult celebration. That's perfect. Kids love fancy food too. I want to transform this into the most spectacular children's party you've ever catered. Keep the lobster and filet mignon, but add pizza hamburgers and a massive ice cream station. Replace the jazz band with a DJ who specializes in children's music. Keep the professional photographer, but focus on capturing kids having the time of their lives. Nathan's enthusiasm grew as he realized the creative possibilities. Mr. Hayes, this could be absolutely magical. We've never done anything quite like this before. A luxury children's celebration with both gourmet and kid-friendly options could be extraordinary. Nathan, I want this to be the birthday party every child dreams about, but no one actually gets to experience. Spare no expense within our budget to make it perfect. While Nathan worked on modifying the catering arrangements, I implemented the second part of Rachel's strategy. I crafted a detailed message to send to every family member who'd received Jessica's lies about my generosity and selfishness. Dear family, many of you have contacted me recently about the anniversary party I supposedly planned for Jessica and Marcus. I want to address this situation with complete honesty and transparency. I did not plan, order, or agree to pay for any anniversary celebration. Jessica forged my signature on a $16,000 catering contract and used my credit card information without permission. I have documentation proving these facts, including timeline evidence of when these crimes occurred. This fraud was Jessica's retaliation for my refusal to co-sign a business loan for Marcus 6 months ago. After reviewing their business finances, I determined that co-signing would put Tyler's financial security at risk. Recent investigation has confirmed that Marcus's business is facing bankruptcy, meaning my refusal actually protected our family from devastating financial liability. Jessica has spent months telling family members that I'm selfish, cheap, and uncaring toward Tyler. She attacked my 7-year-old son at his birthday dinner, telling him that he receives modest gifts because I don't love him enough to spend more money. This cruelty toward a child is unacceptable regardless of any adult disagreements. I'm sharing this information not to embarrass Jessica, but to stop the spread of lies that are damaging both Tyler's emotional well-being and my relationships with family members who deserve to know the truth. The catering order Jessica fraudulently placed in my name will not be canceled. Instead, I'm redirecting it to create the most amazing birthday celebration Tyler has ever experienced. The money Jessica tried to steal from us will instead fund a magical day for my son and his friends surrounded by people who genuinely care about his happiness. I'm attaching copies of the forged documents, credit card statements, and legal analysis of Jessica's actions. Anyone who wants to verify these facts is welcome to examine the evidence. Moving forward, I ask that you base your judgments on documented facts rather than gossip or manipulation. Tyler and I deserve better than to be victims of Jessica's financial crimes and character assassination. With love and respect for those who stand with truth, Connor, I attached copies of every document Rachel had helped me organize, creating an irrefutable case that revealed the full scope of Jessica's deception. The message went out to 37 family members, including aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends, who'd been drawn into Jessica's web of lies. Next, I called Tyler's teacher to explain why he'd been struggling emotionally and to invite his entire class to next Saturday's celebration. Mrs. Williams was both horrified by Jessica's treatment of Tyler and excited about the party invitation. Mr. Hayes, this is incredibly generous. Tyler has been so withdrawn lately, and I think this celebration might be exactly what he needs to rebuild his confidence. I spent Saturday afternoon at the West Side Community Center with Tyler, transforming the space for next week's party, while Jessica's anniversary celebration collapsed in real time. Tyler's excitement about planning his dream party began healing the damage Jessica's cruelty had caused. "Daddy, can we really have lobster and hamburgers at the same party?" Tyler asked, his eyes bright with anticipation. "We can have anything that makes you happy, buddy. This party is about celebrating how special you are." While we decorated the community center, my phone buzzed constantly with calls and text messages from family members who'd received my evidence-filled message. The responses ranged from shock and apology to anger toward Jessica for manipulating them. My Uncle Frank called first. "Connor, I owe you a huge apology. I can't believe Jessica did this to you and Tyler. Your mother and I are reviewing all those documents you sent, and it's clear she's been lying to everyone." Aunt Patricia sent a long text message expressing horror at Jessica's treatment of Tyler and promising to speak directly with Emma about the comments she'd made at school. One by one, family members reached out to express support and outrage at Jessica's behavior. But the most important call came from Marcus himself, just as Tyler and I were finishing our party planning. "Connor, I just saw your message to the family and I need to apologize immediately. I had no idea Jessica had committed fraud against you. I thought you'd actually agreed to pay for our anniversary party as some kind of peace offering." Marcus's voice sounded exhausted and defeated. "Connor, Jessica told me you'd finally realized you were wrong about the loan and wanted to make amends by hosting our celebration. I should have questioned why you'd suddenly spend $16,000, but I wanted to believe our family relationships were healing. Marcus, what's really going on with your business?" There was a long pause before Marcus answered. "It's over, Connor. We're filing for bankruptcy next month. I've been hiding the extent of our problems from Jessica because I didn't want her to panic, but she figured out enough to become desperate. Your refusal to co-sign that loan saved you from being dragged into our financial disaster." Marcus explained that Jessica had been making increasingly irrational decisions as their financial situation deteriorated. She'd been taking money from his business account for personal expenses, charging luxury items to credit cards they couldn't pay off, and borrowing money from friends without his knowledge. "Connor, I'm grateful you refused to co-sign that loan even though I resented you for it at the time. If you'd signed, you'd be facing bankruptcy alongside us right now." After hanging up with Marcus, I realized Jessica's cruelty toward Tyler stemmed from her own terror about her children's future. She'd lashed out at the one family member who'd maintained financial stability, projecting her fears and failures onto my relationship with Tyler. That evening, Tyler and I sat on our front porch, looking at stars through his telescope, while my phone continued buzzing with supportive messages from family members. The truth was spreading faster than Jessica's lies had, and the family was rallying around us, with genuine understanding and anger toward Jessica's deception. "Daddy, do you think Aunt Jessica will say sorry?" I hope she will, buddy. Sometimes people do wrong things when they're scared or sad, but that doesn't make the wrong things okay. As we packed up the telescope, my phone chimed with a text message from Jessica. Where's everything for the party? People are arriving at the country club and there's nothing here. I took a screenshot of Tyler smiling with his telescope, then sent it to Jessica with a simple message, creating better memories. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time in months, I felt like Tyler and I were winning. Sunday morning at Disneyland felt like stepping into a completely different world. Tyler's face lit up with pure joy as we approached the entrance gates, his excitement washing away weeks of hurt and confusion. I'd used 3 vacation days and dipped into my emergency savings to fund this spontaneous trip. But watching Tyler's happiness made every penny worthwhile. Daddy, are we really going to ride everything? Tyler asked, clutching his new Disney pin collection book that he'd picked out at the hotel gift shop. We're going to ride everything you want to ride, see everything you want to see, and eat everything you want to eat. I promised feeling lighter than I had in months. As we explored Fantasyland, my phone began buzzing constantly with calls and messages. I'd put it on silent to focus entirely on Tyler, but the persistent notifications suggested something significant was happening back home. Finally, during a break between rides, I checked my messages and discovered the full scope of Jessica's anniversary disaster. The first message was from my cousin David, who'd attended Jessica's party. Connor, I just left the country club. There was no food, no decorations, no band, nothing. Jessica was crying in the parking lot telling everyone that you'd sabotaged her anniversary. People started leaving after 30 minutes of waiting. I've never seen anything so embarrassing. Aunt Patricia had sent photos from the country club showing confused guests milling around empty event rooms. The elegant venue looked hollow and sad without any celebration to fill it. Jessica had apparently spent thousands of her own money on flowers and personal decorations, but without the catering music and professional coordination, the event had collapsed immediately. Uncle Connor, this is Emma, read a text from Jessica's phone. Mommy is crying and Daddy is very angry. Can you please help us? My heart broke for Emma and Jake, innocent children, caught in their parents' dramatic failures. I immediately called Marcus to check on the kids' well-being. Connor, thank God you called. Marcus answered, his voice heavy with exhaustion. Yesterday was a complete disaster, but that's not why I'm calling you. We need to talk about something much more serious. Marcus explained that Jessica's emotional breakdown at the country club had led to a series of confessions about her recent behavior. Under pressure from angry relatives demanding explanations, Jessica had admitted to the fraud the lies she'd spread about me and her deliberate cruelty toward Tyler. Connor. I had no idea how badly Jessica had been treating Tyler. When I learned what she said to him at his birthday dinner, I was horrified. That's not the woman I married, and it's not the mother my children deserve. But Marcus had even more shocking news. Jessica confessed that she's been hiding our financial problems from me, too. She's been taking money from our joint accounts to pay for personal expenses while telling me we had more business income than we actually had. She spent over $30,000 in the past 6 months that I didn't know about. The scope of Jessica's deception was far wider than anyone had realized. She'd been lying to Marcus about their finances while lying to the family about my character, creating a web of deceit that was finally collapsing under its own weight. Marcus, what does this mean for Emma and Jake? We're getting divorced, Marcus said quietly. I can't trust someone who would commit fraud against family members and emotionally abuse a child. The kids will stay with me, while Jessica gets professional help for whatever's driving this behavior. As Tyler and I rode Pirates of the Caribbean, my phone rang with a call that surprised me completely. It was Jessica herself, sobbing and barely coherent. Connor, please, you have to help me. Marcus is leaving me, the family won't speak to me, and I don't know what to do. I'm so sorry about Tyler and the money and everything. Please don't let me lose everything. I stepped away from Tyler, who was mesmerized by the ride's animatronics, to take the call in a quieter area. Jessica, what you did to Tyler was unforgivable. You attacked a child to get revenge on me. I know, and I'm so sorry. I was desperate and scared, and I took it out on you and Tyler. I never meant for things to go this far." Jessica's tears sounded genuine, but her pattern of manipulation made it impossible to trust her emotional appeals. "Jessica, you didn't just attack Tyler once. You spent months poisoning his relationship with his cousins, making him feel worthless, and using your own daughter to humiliate him at school. Connor, I was losing my mind watching our life fall apart. I blamed you for not helping us, but Marcus just told me the truth about our finances. Even if you'd co-signed that loan, it wouldn't have saved us. I was angry at the wrong person for the wrong reasons." For the first time, Jessica sounded like she understood the real consequences of her choices. But understanding and accountability were different things. "Jessica, you committed multiple crimes against me and traumatized my son. Understanding why doesn't erase what you did. I'll do anything to make this right. I'll pay back the money, go to therapy, apologize to Tyler personally. Please don't press criminal charges. I can't go to jail and lose my children forever." I looked over at Tyler, who was laughing with pure joy as we moved through the pirate scenes. His happiness was my priority, not Jessica's consequences or redemption. "Jessica, I'm not making any decisions while I'm focused on my son. We'll deal with everything when I get home." The afternoon brought more calls from family members who'd learned the complete truth about Jessica's behavior. My mother called crying with shame about how she'd defended Jessica against my accusations. "Connor, I'm so sorry I doubted you. When I saw all that evidence you sent, I realized how completely Jessica had fooled me. The way she treated Tyler is unforgivable, and I want you to know that the family stands behind you completely. Uncle Frank called to tell me that several relatives were organizing a fund to help cover any financial losses I'd suffered from Jessica's fraud. Connor, we want to make sure Tyler doesn't suffer because of Jessica's crimes. You shouldn't have to pay for her selfishness." But the most meaningful call came from Mrs. Williams, Tyler's teacher, who'd heard about our situation through the school's parent network. "Mr. Hayes, I wanted you to know that several parents have reached out asking how they can support Tyler. The story of what your sister did to him has really affected our school community. As evening approached and Tyler grew tired from our magical day, we sat together on a bench in front of Cinderella Castle, watching the lights begin to twinkle in the gathering darkness. Daddy, this has been the best day ever, Tyler said, leaning against my shoulder. I'm so happy we came here together. Me too, buddy. You deserve every bit of this happiness. Do you think Aunt Jessica is still sad about her party? Tyler's question reminded me that despite everything Jessica had done, he still possessed the capacity for empathy and concern for others. His gentle heart hadn't been hardened by her cruelty, which meant I'd succeeded in protecting what mattered most about his character. I think Aunt Jessica is learning some important lessons about how to treat people, especially children. Sometimes adults have to face consequences for their choices before they can become better people. Will she learn to be nice again? I hope so, Tyler, but even if she does, we know now that we need to be careful around people who might try to hurt us. That night in our Disneyland hotel room, Tyler fell asleep, clutching a new stuffed Mickey Mouse, while I reviewed the dozens of supportive messages from family and friends. Jessica's web of lies had completely unraveled, replaced by an outpouring of genuine care for Tyler and outrage at Jessica's treatment of us. The financial costs of Jessica's fraud seemed manageable now that family members understood the truth and were offering support. More importantly, Tyler's emotional healing had already begun. His natural joy and confidence were returning as he realized that his worth wasn't measured by the cost of his gifts, but by the love of the people who truly cared about him. Jessica had tried to destroy our happiness out of her own desperation and pain. Instead, she'd revealed the strength of our family bonds and given Tyler an unforgettable lesson about standing up to bullies while maintaining kindness and forgiveness. As I drifted off to sleep listening to Tyler's peaceful breathing, I felt grateful for the clarity Jessica's cruelty had provided. Sometimes the worst attacks reveal the best truths about who really matters in your life. 6 months later, Tyler and I sat in our backyard on a warm Saturday afternoon, setting up his telescope for an evening of stargazing. The transformation in both of us was remarkable. Tyler had regained his natural confidence and joy, excelling in school, and developing friendships with classmates who valued his kindness rather than material possessions. I'd found peace in my decisions and strength in my convictions about protecting what truly mattered. Daddy Mrs. Rodriguez wants to know if you'll help chaperone the Science Museum field trip next month, Tyler said, carefully adjusting his telescope's focus. Mrs. Rodriguez was Tyler's new teacher, who'd quickly recognized his intelligence and curiosity. Tyler's academic performance had soared once he'd stopped worrying about whether his father's love was measured in dollars spent. Of course, I'll help chaperone. I love seeing you get excited about learning. The past 6 months had brought closure to the situation with Jessica, while opening new possibilities for our future. Jessica had followed through on her promises to seek therapy and make amends, though the process had been more complex than any of us had expected. 2 weeks after our Disneyland trip, Jessica had appeared at our front door with a handwritten letter of apology addressed to Tyler. She'd asked permission to read it to him personally, acknowledging that her behavior had been wrong and that Tyler's worth had nothing to do with money or gifts. Tyler had listened carefully, then hugged her and told her he forgave her. I was scared about my family losing our house and not having money. Jessica had explained to Tyler in simple terms he could understand. But being scared doesn't make it okay to hurt other people, especially someone I love like you. I'm sorry I said those mean things and made you feel bad about yourself. Tyler's response had been pure wisdom. It's okay, Aunt Jessica. Sometimes people make mistakes when they're sad. I still love you, but you have to promise not to be mean to kids anymore. Jessica's promise had been genuine, and she'd spent the following months rebuilding trust through consistent actions rather than just words. She'd started therapy to address the anxiety and control issues that had driven her destructive behavior. The divorce from Marcus had proceeded amicably, with both of them focusing on co-parenting Emma and Jake effectively. Marcus had started over with a small, honest contracting business, working primarily on residential repairs and renovations. Without the pressure of maintaining an expensive lifestyle, he'd discovered satisfaction in quality craftsmanship and fair dealing with customers. He'd also become a more present father to Emma and Jake, prioritizing time with them over business expansion. Connor, I owe you more than an apology, Marcus had told me during one of our monthly coffee meetings. Your refusal to enable our financial irresponsibility forced us to face reality before we dragged you down with us. If you'd co-signed that loan, you'd be bankrupt right now alongside us. The legal consequences for Jessica had been handled through a restorative justice program that required her to make full financial restitution while completing community service and therapy. She'd paid back every penny she'd stolen, plus interest, working extra hours as a freelance graphic designer to earn the money honestly. More importantly, Jessica had become an advocate for financial literacy and healthy family communication. She volunteered with a local nonprofit that helped families navigate financial crisis without destroying relationships. Her experience had taught her valuable lessons about pride, honesty, and the difference between wants and needs. I spent months blaming Connor for our problems because it was easier than admitting Marcus and I had made terrible financial decisions. Jessica had told our family during a reconciliation dinner. I attacked Tyler because I was terrified about Emma and Jake's future, but hurting a child is never acceptable, no matter how scared you are. The family dynamics had fundamentally shifted after Jessica's lies were exposed. Extended relatives had rallied around Tyler and me with genuine support, but they'd also demanded accountability from Jessica before accepting her back into family gatherings. The process had been painful, but ultimately healing for everyone involved. Emma and Jake had thrived in their new reality of honest financial limitations combined with increased parental attention. Emma had apologized to Tyler for the comments she'd made at school, and they developed a closer relationship based on shared interests rather than material comparisons. Jake had started calling me Uncle Connor and asking for advice about dealing with bullies at school. Tyler, your cousin Jake really looks up to you, I mentioned as we finished setting up the telescope. He told his dad that you're the bravest kid he knows because you stayed kind even when people were mean to you. Tyler smiled with quiet pride. Jake's going through hard stuff too, with his parents getting divorced. I told him that families can still love each other, even when they live in different houses. My dating life had slowly begun to open up as well. Sarah's death had left me reluctant to pursue romantic relationships, partly out of grief, but also out of concern about Tyler's emotional stability. However, Tyler's resilience and maturity had convinced me that he could handle appropriate changes in our family structure. I'd started seeing Linda, a fellow teacher who worked at the elementary school where Tyler had attended kindergarten. She was patient, kind, and wonderful, with children, having spent 15 years teaching second grade. Tyler adored her, and she'd seamlessly integrated into our quiet routines without trying to replace Sarah's memory. "Is Miss Linda coming to watch the meteor shower with us tonight?" Tyler asked, checking his watch to see if we still had time before the astronomical event began. "She'll be here in about an hour." "She's bringing hot chocolate and those cookies you like?" "The snickerdoodles, those are my favorite." Linda had become part of our family gradually and naturally, attending Tyler's school events and joining our weekend adventures. She understood that Tyler and I were a team first, and she respected the bond we'd built through surviving loss and adversity together. My career had also taken positive turns. The school district had promoted me to department head for social studies, recognizing my dedication and the respect I'd earned from both students and parents. The additional income had allowed me to start a college savings account for Tyler while maintaining our modest lifestyle. "Daddy, when I go to college, will you miss me?" Tyler asked as we tested the telescope's alignment. "I'll miss you terribly, but I'll be so proud of you for learning and growing." That's what good parents want for their children, even when it means being apart for a while. "Will you and Miss Linda visit me at college?" "We'll visit as often as you want us to, and you can always come home whenever you need to." The community support system that had emerged during our crisis had evolved into lasting friendships and connections. Parents from Tyler's class had organized regular play dates and activities, creating a network of families that supported each other through various challenges. Mrs. Williams had become a family friend, often joining us for weekend activities and celebrations. Mr. Hayes Tyler's transformation over the past 6 months has been remarkable, she'd told me during our most recent parent conference. He's not just academically successful, he's become a leader among his classmates, showing kindness and empathy that inspire other children to be their best selves. The premium events catering celebration for Tyler had been every bit as magical as I'd hoped. 37 children from his school had attended, along with family members who'd wanted to show support for Tyler after learning about Jessica's treatment of him. Nathan had outdone himself, creating an elegant yet playful atmosphere that made every child feel special. "Connor, in 20 years of catering, I've never seen children enjoy themselves more thoroughly," Nathan had told me after the party. "That combination of gourmet and kid-friendly food was inspired. You created something completely unique." The party had also served as Tyler's introduction to being comfortable in social leadership roles. He'd helped coordinate activities, made sure shy children felt included, and graciously thanked everyone who'd attended. His natural empathy and confidence had shone through, proving that Jessica's attempts to damage his self-worth had ultimately failed. As the sun began to set, and Linda arrived with hot chocolate and cookies, I reflected on the profound lessons the past 6 months had taught us both. Tyler had learned that standing up to bullies was important, but maintaining kindness and forgiveness was equally important. He discovered that his worth came from his character rather than external possessions or other people's opinions. I'd learned that protecting Tyler sometimes meant making difficult decisions that other people might criticize or misunderstand. Refusing to enable Jessica's financial irresponsibility had been the right choice, even though it had temporarily made me look selfish to family members who didn't understand the full situation. Connor, you saved your family by standing firm in your principles, Linda had told me during one of our early conversations. Tyler learned that his father will protect him no matter what, and that's the foundation of confidence and security. The financial lessons had been equally valuable. I'd taught Tyler about budgeting, saving, and the difference between needs and wants through practical examples rather than abstract lectures. He'd learned to appreciate quality over quantity and to value experiences over possessions. Daddy, I'm glad we don't have a big house like Emma used to have, Tyler had told me recently. Our house feels cozy and safe, and we know we can afford to keep it. As we settled in for our evening of stargazing with Linda setting up the cookies and hot chocolate on our picnic table, I felt profound gratitude for the clarity that had emerged from Jessica's attacks. Sometimes the worst betrayals reveal the most important truths about what really matters in life. Tyler, what's the most important thing you've learned this year? I asked, as we prepared to look for the first meteors. I learned that people who really love you will protect you and stand up for you even when it's hard. And I learned that being kind is more important than having expensive things. What else? I learned that sometimes family members can make big mistakes. But if they're really sorry and they work to fix what they broke, you can forgive them and still love them. Tyler's wisdom humbled me. Despite experiencing betrayal and cruelty from someone who should have protected him, he'd emerged with stronger character and deeper understanding of love, loyalty, and forgiveness. As the first meteor streaked across the sky and Tyler gasped with excitement, I realized that Jessica's attempt to destroy our happiness had actually strengthened everything that mattered most. Tyler and I had discovered the unshakable bond between us. Our family had learned to value truth over convenience, and I'd found the courage to protect what I loved most, regardless of external pressure. There's another one, Tyler shouted, pointing at a brilliant streak of light. Make a wish, buddy. I wish for our family to always be honest and kind to each other, and for everyone to learn from their mistakes like Aunt Jessica did. Linda reached over and squeezed my hand as we watched Tyler's excitement about the meteor shower. You've raised an incredible young man, Connor. He raised himself to be incredible. I just tried not to get in his way. The evening continued with meteors, hot chocolate, and quiet conversation about dreams, plans, and the future. Tyler fell asleep in his chair around 10 o'clock, exhausted from excitement and sugar. I carried him inside while Linda cleaned up our stargazing supplies. Connor, what you did for Tyler took tremendous courage, Linda said as we tucked Tyler into bed. Standing up to family pressure, legal consequences, and financial stress to protect your child from emotional abuse was heroic. It didn't feel heroic at the time. It felt terrifying and overwhelming. That's what makes it heroic. You did the right thing despite being scared. As Linda left for the evening and I prepared for bed myself, I reflected on the life lesson that had emerged from our ordeal. True strength isn't measured by wealth, status, or the approval of others. True strength is found in the courage to protect innocence, stand up for justice, and maintain your principles, even when doing so costs you relationships or financial security. Jessica's cruelty had forced me to discover depths of courage and conviction I hadn't known I possessed. Tyler had learned that his father would always choose his well-being over family harmony or social acceptance. Our extended family had learned to value truth over comfortable lies and to support victims rather than enable abusers. The most profound realization was that some of life's greatest gifts come disguised as its worst attacks. Jessica's betrayal had revealed the strength of genuine relationships while exposing false ones. Her attempt to isolate and humiliate us had actually connected us with people who shared our values of honesty, kindness, and protection of vulnerable family members. 6 months ago, I'd felt trapped and overwhelmed by Jessica's systematic destruction of our family relationships. Tonight, I felt grateful for the clarity her actions had provided and confident about our future. Tyler and I had survived the storm together, and we'd emerged stronger, wiser, and more connected than ever before. The lesson was clear: when someone attacks what you love most, don't just defend it. Protect it by becoming the best version of yourself. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to tolerate destructive behavior, even from family members who expect unlimited chances to repeat their mistakes. Tyler and I had learned that real family doesn't manipulate, exploit, or abuse. Real family protects, supports, and celebrates each other's successes without keeping score or demanding reciprocal benefits. We'd found our real family among the people who'd stood with us during our darkest moments, and we'd built our future on foundations of honesty, courage, and unconditional love. As I turned off the lights and settled into bed, I felt peaceful, knowing that Tyler would carry these lessons into his own future relationships and decisions. He'd learned early that character matters more than possessions, that standing up to bullies requires courage but preserves dignity, and that forgiveness is possible when people genuinely change their behavior rather than just apologizing for it. The telescope Tyler had received for his 7th birthday continued to bring him joy every clear evening. But it had also become a symbol of something more important. It represented the truth that the most meaningful gifts aren't measured by their cost, but by the love behind them and the joy they create. Jessica had tried to teach Tyler that love could be measured in dollars, but she'd actually taught him that love can only be measured in actions, choices, and the courage to protect what matters most. Sometimes the stars align to show us exactly what we need to see, and sometimes the people who try to dim our light end up making it shine brighter than ever before. Have you ever had to choose between family harmony and protecting someone you love? How do you teach children to value character over material possessions in a world that often celebrates wealth above kindness? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video to help other families who might be facing similar challenges. Subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in difficult situations and protecting what matters most. And please share this with anyone who needs to hear that standing up for the vulnerable is always worth the cost. Thank you for joining Tyler and me on this journey of growth, healing, and discovery. I hope our experience encourages you to trust your instincts about protecting the people you love, even when the path forward seems unclear. Remember that sometimes the best gift you can give someone is the courage to stand up for them when they can't stand up for themselves. Until next time, keep looking up at the stars, and remember that the most beautiful lights shine brightest against the darkest skies.